One of our customers told us that some grinds they want to look perfect and other grinds they want to look imperfect because over the last 100 years, their customers come back and say like, what changed? Why is it different? I've been using this thing for 50 years of my job. We have to figure out what is the perfect imperfect weld.
Michelle, coffee, tea, or something else? What fuels your mornings?
Matcha. I am a
Matcha. Okay.
matcha girl. Yes.
I, I need to add that to the list.
You got to do the whole
A whole
list,
gambit. Yeah.
everything. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. How long does that take you to prep?
It's honestly meditative.
Okay.
So I try to spend a little bit of time doing it in the mornings just to get my mind ready for the day.
Love that. Okay. It's like a ritual.
hmm
When you were a kid, what did you think you'd grow up to be?
When I was really young, a vet.
Yeah.
My mom really steered away from that, steered me away from that. She was like, look at all of these things that you will have to do. And she showed me videos of just like unpleasant animal interactions.
Nice.
And then later on, maybe in my teens, I really wanted to be, if you've ever watched the TV show Mythbusters, that's
Yes.
what I wanted to be.
A myth buster?
A Mythbuster.
Heard that one before. What's
Yeah.
one technology that you can't live without?
Oh, what is one technology I can't live without? I'm sure most people would probably say their phone, but in all honesty, I probably could live without my phone.
Hmm.
Um, but internet is probably what it will be. I
Yeah.
will need internet.
True. Yeah. In some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
And if you could fast forward 10 years and see one impact that your work has made on the world, what would you want that to be?
Oh, I always believe in foundational changes for people. It's probably the common link throughout my entire career of just changing people's lives on a day to day basis. Um, and as long as it kind of fulfills that purpose, I'm very, very happy.
Awesome. Welcome to Machine Minds. I'm your host, Greg Terusian, founder of Samson Rose, your robotics talent search partner. And on today's episode, I'm joined by Michelle Lowe, Director of Customer Strategy and Success at GrayMatter Robotics. Thanks for being on the show today, Michelle.
Yeah. Thank you for having me, Greg.
My pleasure. Let's jump into it. We obviously had Arian on recently as well. So this is a follow on from that episode to talk more about your customer journey and everything. But I really want to find out a bit more about you as well and your path into this customer centric robotics world that you are in right now, because you sit in this really interesting role at that intersection of solutions engineering, customer strategy, long term success, and
Mhm.
making sure that your customers are happy. Really, what does that actually mean on a day to day basis?
It's a great question. On a day to day basis, it's really a lot of deeply understanding manufacturing pain points, customer needs, and synthesizing that in a way where we're able to deliver that not just as a technology, but also as a service, as a communication, as a whole product of what GMR represents. I like to think of our team as not just a technology provider, but rather we are a manufacturing solutions provider, right? We're trying to solve manufacturing problems, and you really have to sit in the shoes of your customer and feel their pain on a day-to-day basis. So that's really my everyday, just like understanding pain points and understanding who our customers are, where their businesses are going, everything like that.
Yeah. What drew you into industrial automation and robotics in the first place?
Mm. I think I've always been in some level of automation. I started my career in electric vehicles, and you could say that that is a type of robot, right? There
Yeah.
is there's the same sensors, it's doing some type of application. Um, and I think that type of technology where there's like this human interaction with it is really intriguing to me because it's not fully just like a system standalone. There's this
Yeah.
level of like humanness and change and the way that it changes how people live their day-to-day lives. And then it was kind of our director of people kind of found me from that world and brought me into industrial engineering. It was a natural fit because even in automotive, it is a lot of manufacturing. You know, I worked with tons of suppliers and manufacturers, saw automotive manufacturing lines. So it was an easy transition.
Yeah.
Definitely a little bit different, but it was very, very similar.
Was there like a particular moment where you realized the hard part isn't just building these robots or these cars or anything like that? It's making sure our customers can actually adopt it.
Yeah, there's definitely moments. I think, especially with the robots, you really understand that what we're changing today in the world is something so human. You know, we have hands and eyes and nose and ears, everything that senses how we do something. It's sort of like whether you're sanding or cooking, it's such a tactile and human thing that
Mhm.
completely translating that into an automation system requires a lot of nuance and requires a lot of understanding of how humans do this work. Um, and the adoption process is also a little bit, you know, nuanced as well because, you know, what do you have the person do, what do you have the automation do, how do the people feel about automation doing those things. um, you have to really deeply understand kind of the not just the tactile aspect of it, but also, you know, how do we ensure that the people find it a positive gain for their life?
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. A lot of manufacturers, they hear automation and they assume it means like replacing an entire manual process. But what do customers usually misunderstand at the beginning when you guys
Mm,
like start working with them?
yeah. I think with, especially today, with the language that is getting used, like physical AI, right? There is a perception that automation is going to come in and just fully automate that process. Um, that is probably the largest misnomer where, you know, automation is really a journey. Even if you look at traditional automation, there's some aspects to it that is autonomous and some aspects of it is still people, right? And over time, that automation percentage will increase and the intervention of a person having to help the automation will decrease and you're able to free up that human labor for something even more adaptive, right? So that's the way that I want our customers to think about it. And that's the way that we preach to our customers that it is always a journey. You have to find the problem statement. The problem statement will split up into kind of like what is today capable, and it will slowly increase over time as we improve and as, you know, the organization adopts that change.
Yeah. When we spoke in preparation for the show, you mentioned that often only about 20 to 50% of an operator's work can realistically be automated. How do you help customers understand that like percentage or that reality without making the solution feel less valuable from what they probably assumed going into the conversation?
Yeah, so we like to think about automation benefits not just from a like one to one, you know,
Yeah.
labor to automation change, right? There's aspects of consistency, quality. People are spending hours and hours doing this job. They get tired. Robots don't get tired. You could open up a new shift and improve your capacity that way with a robot because it's just always there, right? Um, we always try to look at different levers of how does automation actually improve a business rather than just that application, because ultimately you can utilize that as a tool 24/7. So how do we get that to happen?
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. I think it's that thought process and realization for people when they're going in. It's their kind of journey of the reality for their situation and then that adoption and things like that. Um, when you're evaluating a customer process, what are you really looking for? Is it like labor hours or safety risk, throughput? I know you mentioned there's a bunch of things that you can look at, but
Mm-hmm.
what is it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think the first thing is capacity. Overall, there are a lot of manufacturers today that have backlog, right? Um, from, 6 months to a year, all the way to like 4 years to 5 years of backlog in traditional manufacturing, everything from ambulances to fire trucks to airplanes, like everything has a backlog. And the primary goal of a lot of these organizations is to increase their capacity. So that is the number one thing that we try to align ourselves with in terms of how we develop our technology, how we implement our technology, and how we try to get our customers to adopt the technology. Um, the a major second lever is definitely something like safety, right? And being able to upskill your operators so that they're not spending their time, gruelingly working on parts all day long. And there are, entities where they have even line items in in their business allocated to, safety, health. They allocate even for like insurance of certain types of benefits for their employees. So if a robot's doing those things, you're not only improving the life of the operator, but you're also helping to relieve some of that budget out of your business, right? Um, and then maybe a third thing to that is finally, like labor hours, yes, but also like quality of work in that labor section. We have some customers where the rework percentages significantly go down because the robot reproduces the same thing over and over and over again, rather where people get tired throughout the day and that maybe sometimes like the quality decreases. Sometimes you have to train new operators, and there's a variety of different reasons that the output comes out differently. And, those are kind of the main driving factors of why automation is so beneficial for today's entities that are trying to increase capacity and lower their rework rates and improve the work life quality of their employees.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. What separates a customer who's actually ready for robotics from one who probably just likes the idea but isn't ready to actually make that adoption step?
Yeah, we actually look for a couple of different fits, right? One is obviously facility, right? I think from a facility perspective, it's do you have space for automation? Because it is a footprint.
Yeah,
And usually automation can do some tasks, right? And there's a certain number of tasks that it can do. However, people are very flexible. People can do a million tasks in the same space. So when you look at facility, you're allocating some type of footprint towards automation. You're kind of making that space a little bit more maybe less humanly flexible, right? Because people can't work in that space if the robot is
yeah,
running. So there's one consideration there. The second thing is do does this organization have the capacity to instill change management and have the mindset around technology change? If there are different layers in the organization, you have VP of operations, you have directors of manufacturing at one level, you have then like production supervisors at another level, and then you have like the actual operator, right? Are they all kind of like aligned that they want this technology, they see the benefit of the technology, and they're willing to put in the championship needed to change their organization to a mindset of technology?
yeah,
When there's disconnect there, it becomes a challenge to maneuver through these like changes and of adoption, because you are ultimately like transforming your business with this like automation. So I find that incredibly, incredibly important. And then maybe the third thing is just, do they have the right mindset around adoption in general? Like, are they expecting, like we mentioned before, like, are they expecting, like, okay, physical AI, here you go, gets everything done? Or
Yeah.
do they have a realistic sense of like, let's work together, let's partner over the years to figure out how to like transform your business over time? Um, when, those three things kind of like match up together, that creates a really, really fantastic partnership with, any automation company. We've created really great partnerships with companies that have that mindset.
I love that. I love that. It gives a good, clear picture as well for people listening to this if they're the ones that are ready or what they need to consider.
Yeah.
Customers often worry about job displacement, right, with automation. And how do you guys explain the role of robots in a way that it's honest but not fear driven?
Yeah. I think ultimately, when you look at the labor capacity of today and how people are looking to get into these trades, it is actually quite low. It's not so much about replacement, rather, it is we are trying to fill the gap that currently does not have any people to even fill, right? So when we look at backlog and capacity, these organizations are trying to double their capacity, but they're not able to hire. Like these manufacturing
Yeah.
companies are sitting in like 3-4 hours from the closest large airport, right? And they're trying to hire, a very small from a very small population already. And, we just have these huge labor gaps in especially like the American economy today. That's what we're trying to fill with automation. We're not looking to displace or replace, right? And every single one of our customers have talked about the value that they see in their operators, and they have no intention of displacing them. What they're trying to do is fill the gap that they're not able to fill today with people.
Yeah. I think people don't realize how much of a hole there is in terms of the people aspect, not having enough hireable people or people that are actually interested and wanting to get into the roles and
Mhm.
keeping a full workforce sometimes. In your experience, do shop floor teams usually resist automation or do they become advocates once they see it working and seeing the changes where it's actually improved their job in a considerable
Yeah,
way?
we have a very strong method around involving the operator during the design process. So we advocate
Mm,
that these operators actually come out to California, see the system, work with our engineers. We treat them like they're the experts, right? Because they've been doing this for, whatever, 10, 20, 30 years. They know how to do this.
yeah.
We're trying to understand from them, how do they see this working with them, um, and really garner that buy-in. Because without that, we know that our automation is not going to be successful on their floor. We advocate to work with the people directly impacted by um, the automation, right? And so with that process, in most cases, in almost all of our cases, there's great buy-in. And we will continue to work with the operators for every single project that we have.
Awesome. In your mind or even in your experience, can you give me an example of like what a healthy human robot workflow looks like in a factory?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So when we take a look at everything a person does, right? There's certain things like, you can break down all of the tasks from, changing sandpaper, or, moving a part into the cell, or, the actual like labor intensive work like a sanding or grinding, whatever it may be. And when you break that down, you want to automate as much of that like tool and hand work as possible, because that is the strenuous, tough work, right? That is the
Yeah.
highest value in terms of being able to relieve the operator from that so that they can do other things. Um, what you want to consider is that there is space for the person to be able to take the parts And if there's any type of inspection required or any type of post work required, that they can do that. We integrate different levels of automation as well. So when we split up the task, we might want to say, okay, you want loading and unloading also automated? Great. Okay. You also want inspection automated? Great. But the company kind of needs to decide usually based off of a price point, right? Like how many modules of automation they want. And
Yeah.
then we kind of split those up from the person and what the robot's responsible for. At the end of the day, we always want the human operator to still be kind of the final checkpoint to ensure that the robot has done its job. So that's why we kind of also say, like, allocate some space for your operator to do any type of like final touches or final inspection. Um, I would
Yeah.
say that it's a pretty straightforward method. We help our customers define this, and we also help our customers understand how to observe and how to split these kind of tasks up.
That's awesome. So it's a very involved process, it sounds like, with you guys, which I love. I love that.
Yeah.
And yeah. GrayMatter describes its solutions as AI powered systems that can work across high mix applications and adapt to variation in parts and processes. And you and I previously talked about the difference between configurable and fully custom solutions as well. Why is that distinction so important?
Mm. The distinction is important because of speed. Fully customized, such as the traditional automation, requires a somebody who is able to create the individual touch points every single time something is different. Rather than for us, configurable, right? We are working off of a platform and hardware agnostic. So we're able to quickly interchange different automation modules. We're quickly able to interchange between hardware, and we're able to quickly interchange between applications. And the speed of deployment and the speed to time to value, if the businesses that we work with often kind of refer to, is much, much faster than a traditional automation process, which sometimes takes, some of our customers have been working with traditional automation for, like 12 months. And I've had customers tell me these stories, like, when I'm working with a paint automation, it's been 12 months, they haven't been able to figure it out. Whereas for
Really?
us, we're in a space of 4 to 6 months, and you have a robot and it's working on your floor, right? We're not messing around in terms of
Yeah.
like, let's figure out all the teach points, nothing like that, right? Like, that's the
Yeah.
power of the intelligence, that's the power of the platform method. um, the configurability really helps us get to our customers for much, much faster.
And you work with the different industries, different customers. Obviously, you've got aerospace, defense. When I was there, I was looking at fire trucks being
Yeah.
done, things like that. How do you build something scalable without ignoring these customer specific realities when those industries that you serve have such, or I'm assuming have very different looking workflows and needs?
Yeah, that's a great question. They're absolutely different. Yes. At the end of the day, we look at it as a system, right? There is a operator with a tool, and the tool has to interact with a part. That's how we look at the problem statement from a technological perspective. So even though the industries are very different and their requirements are very different, we're utilizing the same, I would say, science, right? To apply the technology onto whatever part that they have. And people are still doing the same type of like inspection, right? Whether it's, okay, I'm going to measure something or I'm going to look and feel something. We translate those things into measurable aspects so that our system has a target that is measurable. So in some ways, we're actually adding some level of value as well there, where a lot of these operations traditionally are observed and inspected through like a very subjective human lens. We're trying to put some numbers, some metric to it so that there's repeatability, consistency. And that spans across all industries, right? Like, that is not a specific thing to, say, aerospace
Yeah,
or specialty vehicles.
makes sense. Where do customers usually need the most customization? Like, is it the robot behavior or the process flow, quality?
I would say the quality is one aspect.
Hmm.
Main reason is because depending on, the outcome that they're looking for, whether it's the industry of aerospace, if they're doing pre-paint, if they're doing post-paint, like whatever the application is, the quality will vary. And so we take that as we need to understand what are those metrics that we have to hit, what is the outcome that we have to hit. Um, it is an input for our system. The other thing that often changes is their workflow, right? So there's constraints around, like I mentioned, their floor space, there's constraints around their part size, there's constraints around how many people are they planning to keep in that area and how many people they're planning to reallocate to different areas. So those types of customer decisions or customer constraints are also inputs to our system so that when we design the full solution, we're taking those things into consideration. And that might
Yeah.
change maybe the configuration, or that might change the way that we plan out the human and robot interactions.
Speaking about quality, one of the most interesting examples that you shared when we spoke in preparation for this was that customers may not always want the robot to make like a perfect part. I don't know if we can share or anything like that, but it was like that perfect weld, for example. Can you explain more about that and how that
Yeah.
differs? Because that was wild to me, but makes
Yeah.
sense. Yeah.
I've been kind of obsessed about this too because it's so interesting to me, and but it makes a lot of sense. One of our customers, they want to grind, and we can grind, great, But then when we saw the outputs, right, they told us that some grinds they want to look perfect, and other grinds they want to look imperfect because over the last, you know, 100 years, this type of equipment, someone owns for somewhere between like 30 to 40 years, or, they have used the same thing for that long. And they are so used to seeing this equipment with these imperfect like weld conditions, and it makes it feel more industrial, that they don't want to change anything. And anytime things like that change, their customers come back and say, like, what changed? Why is it different? Like I've been using this thing for like the last 50 years of my job. Why is it different
Yeah.
now? So I find that incredibly interesting and also incredibly subjective. And, we have to figure out how to measure like what is the perfect imperfect weld.
That's right. Yeah, yeah. I didn't think about that part. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
like, let's factor in the messy, strong, but not
Yeah.
too perfect.
It looks industrial, therefore it is.
Yeah, yeah. Because I guess with these companies, like you mentioned, they're mature companies that have been around for 100 plus years. So their product appearance can be tied to the customer trust and like the
Hmm.
brand history and stuff like that. Yeah, that's really interesting. How do you define success when the customer's quality standard is partly technical and then partly subjective?
Yeah, I mean, we have to be able to use the tool sets of technology today, right? Like we are using everything under the sun in terms of the ability to inspect, the ability to use visual cues, the ability to utilize some, like training methods to understand the outcomes and the outputs of
Mm,
the system. Um, Quantifying a human inspection output in any of these industries is a very diverse thing. And we definitely just use everything under the sun to be able to figure out how to define clearly what the outcome is.
yeah.
And like I mentioned, sometimes it's not a number, right? Sometimes it is a picture, and we have to use that picture in some type of model to figure out, like, did the robot do the right thing?
Yeah. What does the customer teach you during deployment? Because it's obviously, like you mentioned, very collaborative and stuff like that with their engineers and the floor team. But what do they teach you through that deployment that you could never fully learn from an initial spec sheet?
Mm. What do they teach us in the deployment phase? Really, how nuanced their manufacturing is, right? we get some semblance of like the diversity and the variety during the project phase and during the scoping phase, but you don't really truly get the test of production until you run production, right? That
Yeah.
variety is so large because your upstream processes might be there might be human factors in your upstream process that, change even if it's the same exact SKU, the same exact geometry, there's different surfaces, right? And then beyond that, there might be different geometries, which our system captures, but we don't see the full suite of that diversity until you go through the gauntlet of production. So
Yeah.
that's really the big test.
It's interesting. Can you talk a bit about like pricing? Because it's subscription. Is that right?
Mm,
Is that how you structure it?
yep, it is
Yeah.
subscription. And the reason for that is because we are fully tied to the outcome of the system, and we are also implementing changes and improvements that change with our customers' business. We understand that a lot of our customers, the what I mentioned, the diversity and the variety, the high mix that happens in their businesses, they need changing technology. They need improving technology that supports their changes in business. So we've chosen to go with the subscriptions to best support and leverage our ability to help our customers through those years of business changes. Um, and then the second thing is we are ultimately very tied to the success of the system on their floor, right? Because we want to ensure that the system is working well, it's delivering value for our customers, and a subscription model really puts that to the test, right? If they're using it and they love
Yeah.
it, the subscription continues.
Yeah. I guess that really helps the customers think about ROI beyond simple labor replacement or anything like that. And having you as a true partner. What do you think are the biggest mistakes that companies make when building the business case for robotics?
Limiting themselves to one of those value modules. If you're looking at it purely based off of like a one-to-one replacement of people to automation, it will likely not be a case that you're going to do well in, because people are fast, right? People are
Yeah.
very fast at doing the work, and automation can be quite, there's different steps to the automation, and it can be slower than the people if you're doing one part. But if people are doing 100 parts, and you start measuring quality and consistency, and you're measuring the ability for the robot to work continuously, right? Then it changes that calculation, and you need to look at bigger drivers than just like the one-to-one comparison. So I would really think about for anybody that's thinking about automation, look at a time span, think about throughput, and think about it within that throughput, what is the quality, and how many more people would you need to get consistent quality and the throughput that you're looking for to meet your actual future demand, right? That's really how you shape it, rather than just like a one-to-one comparison of people
Yeah.
to robot.
That probably also helps justify the investment internally, right? When you're trying to struggle or think through how we're going to pay for this or how we're going to adopt it, etc. It's
Mm-hmm.
that way of thinking. Um, Speak about the people are the better or faster or can do a number of things. You had a strong take on humanoids that they're not practical answer for most manufacturing problems, which I think a lot of people and listeners here can probably agree with. But why? Why do you have that
Yeah,
mindset?
human form. We maybe the benefit there is that our world is created for human form, but the human
Yeah,
form is not very good at doing tasks most efficiently, right? The way that we need to improve productivity and improve efficiency in manufacturing is not by utilizing the same form. People can only apply so much force, people can only hold tools a certain size, right? The human form has limitations that, an industrial system can overcome, right? We are trying to improve that productivity by quote unquote like superhuman capabilities, right? And we need to go faster, we need to push harder, we need to be able to do more things in less time. And with a human form factor, you can only move so fast and you can only, like do certain things. You only have two arms, right? Like you can have
Right.
multiple head changes and multiple robots. Yes, you can have like a swarm of humanoids, but that's also space. Um, so I don't believe that the humanoid form factor is the way to get us to better productivity.
Yeah, that makes sense. Why do you think people are so drawn to that human shape for robot? Is it like a movie thing or sci-fi kind of, even when, purpose-built machines are going to perform better, like you mentioned.
Yeah. Um, maybe it's some type of like comfort. I don't know, but
Yeah.
I have talked to some individuals that have visited, like humanoid companies. And I was also at CES seeing all these humanoids.
There was so many there. Yeah.
So many, right? And
Yeah.
they
This
were
year
all
was the year of humanoids.
right, right. And they were doing all these different things, but I personally didn't feel super comforted by like this like human shape. And I was talking to some other people about this too, that they were feeling a little bit like uneasy with it as well. I think there is some type of like cultural, maybe like zeitgeist that kind of happens in our minds about these like humanoid forms and like what they can become and who they
Yeah.
will be. And like there's these movies and cultural significance to it that makes it so intriguing for all of us. I mean, I'm intrigued. I would love to like
Yeah.
see humanoids in some way or some shape or form. But I don't know if like manufacturing is the best place for where humanoids can shine.
Yeah. Yeah. Fair. Where do you think AI will have the biggest real world impact in manufacturing over the next few years?
Yeah. I think there's layers to this. Manufacturing is fundamentally, especially in the high mix world, very adaptive. The problem statement is um, a highly adaptive human process that includes, everything from part flow, part movement, supply chain, data entering, ERP. Like everything is just so human.
Yeah.
And fundamentally we need some type of modeling and prediction and closed loop systems that allow for better optimization of a whole factory. And we've developed a product of factory superintelligence of being able to orchestrate or being able to identify certain modules of engineering work that's required to improve factories, right? And understand the adaptivity of people in those factories. That's where AI is going to come in and really change things, where you can do predictive modeling, you can do optimization with like a variety of variables, with a variety of intakes. Um, that will be very, very interesting. And I think that is something, very close in the future. That's something that we're, deploying out to our customers. And that's where, we think we'll be able to provide the most value.
Awesome. I want to hear about, before we wrap, some lessons from the front lines with the customers and see if there's some stuff that you can share there. Are
Sure.
there any that come to mind, like a customer interaction that changed the way you think about automation?
Yeah. I mean, every customer is very, very different, but I came from automotive, and automotive is very automated already because everything is like very precise. Um, the first customer that I went to, they're a boat maker, went there, and I literally saw people just lining the entirety of this like huge building, hand sanding boats. Like there was not one machine in sight.
Wow.
And
Really? In this
no,
day and age, that's pretty crazy.
not one single machine.
Yeah.
And they were just like out in the open. The boats would, I was like, how do they know what to work on? I would ask people, like, how do they know what to work
Yeah.
on? How do they know something is done? And they were just like, they just know, and then they move it along. And I'm like, how do you track things? Oh, like when it gets done, it gets done. And my automotive brain was just like, how is this possible? How is this how everything
Yeah.
else is being made this way? So I had these like questions in my head, and then every subsequent customer that I went to, whether it was like ambulances or motorcycles or helmets, like everything had the same narrative. And that's when it kind of, it really hit me that the way that most people think about manufacturing and they see these like magnificent automotive lines does not exist anywhere else except for maybe like
Yeah.
food and CPG, right?
Interesting. Yeah.
That yeah, that was insane. And then also understanding and hearing out the capacity challenges and how much backlog there really is in manufacturing, that was another eye-opening, number for me. Like the number is in the trillions, by 2030.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Wow. I didn't know it was that that high.
Yep.
Wow. What does a great customer partnership look like before, during, and after deployment?
Yeah. Um, Great partnership to me means they have a desire to automate and transform their organization. They understand that there will be, changes over time, and there is a championship within their organization that continuously gives us feedback, right? So during the process, the customer is open and willing to, come to our site, understand the technology, understand its capabilities today, understand what's possible in the future, work with us to figure out, okay, here's the operator flow, this is where we'll go, have a vision around like what change management will already look like even before deployment. During deployment, right? Really being able to support us with the diversity of parts to be able to train our system, to test our system on site after deployment is really where this gets tested of that relationship, right? Things will happen, parts will be new. Like I said, the rigor of production will happen. And we will need continuous feedback from our customers so that we can implement those changes really, really quickly and get them
Yeah.
to that value so much faster. So that's really the best type of partnership. And then ultimately, when they're looking at a larger transformative option, right? Whether it's the breadth of their automation or across different business units, they're thinking about GrayMatter Robotics because we've really given them the experience and the return that they've been looking for.
Awesome. Awesome. I know we're almost at time, but I want to see if we can squeeze one more in.
Mm.
And if you could give one piece of advice to robotics companies that are trying to improve customer adoption, what would that be?
I would let them know to make sure that your organization is aligned on the work it will take to transform your organization and the buy-in that is required from your organization to change both the mindset and the actions, and find an automation partner that's willing to go through it with you because it will be a journey. It is not a single moment that you'll see that your automation will change. And once you get that community of people that like believe in it and are willing to put in the work to change it, continue down that path and work towards it step by step, right? Like that is how we'll get there together.
Awesome. Well, I think that's a great place to wrap. Thank you so much for being on the show, Michelle. This was great, really insightful and awesome to hear about what makes a good customer, your guys' customer journey, and how you work with them as well. I think that's really eye-opening. So
Yeah,
thank you.
absolutely. Greg, thank you for your time. Really great questions. I appreciate you and, you know, your efforts into bringing automation into the world through this podcast.
Yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure. How can our listeners learn more about you and follow along for your work and what you're doing?
Yeah, take a look at GrayMatter Robotics, our website. Feel free to follow me on LinkedIn. I post everything that we're doing. I'm also speaking at FabTech this year, so
Very
if you are
cool.
there, you can see me there.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, we'll put the links in the show notes and hopefully we'll keep in touch and maybe get you back on in the future.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Thank you.